Is the XRP lawsuit with Ripple and the SEC really finished? I get that question every single day without fail. And every single time I say, yes, the lawsuit's over and done with, I get the response that people say, nope, it's not. Otherwise, the price would have gone absolutely crazy. So, Dusty, you are wrong. The lawsuit is still ongoing, with their primary reason being because the SEC could still appeal. Now, there are two very important things to cover in this video. If you've not done it yet, make sure you press that like button. But number one is covering really quickly whether or not the case right now is over. And second of all, what would happen if there was an appeal? Both of these we'll cover with some lawyer and Ripple official opinions to make sure we are factually talking, not so much a random person like me giving his opinion. So first of all, if you're wondering, is the Ripple case really over right now? I like to refer to somebody who's known as Chris Larsen. He's the co-founder of Ripple and the co-creator of the XRP ledger, and he had some interesting words about the lawsuit himself. He basically said, the SEC's unhinged campaign against us is finally over. Let's all hope this ends this administration's war on crypto. He himself has now said that the SEC's part against Ripple is officially over, and the main reason that's the case is because a lawsuit is officially finished once the judge has issued the final judgment. Maybe not in every single case, I don't know about that, but in this case it was. There are some key parts of that, meaning what essentially happened is the SEC brought up a point. They said, hey, Ripple has done this wrong or that wrong for these reasons. That's the lawsuit, right? Over time, the SEC and Ripple fought out as to what exactly was done wrong, if anything was done wrong, and the judge is judging that based on who's right, what the facts are, etc., etc. Eventually, though, you come to a conclusion about who was right and who was wrong, if they were wrong, how much they were wrong, and what the fine for that is going to be. And again, if you think back from the start, what was the SEC's objective? There's a complaint, there's a point, and they like Ripple to be fined. That's their objective, for them to come out on top with Ripple paying the fine and the judge saying, Ripple, you did it wrong. Here's what you have to pay. What has now happened a few months later? Well, the judge gave her opinion saying, hey, this is the conclusion of what the SEC alleged. You know, it's not exactly as you alleged. You're not going to have to pay exactly as was described, but here's my conclusion, which is a response or the final response to your original complaint, or I should even not say original complaint, I'd say amended complaint because it changes over time. But the final judgment is basically the end dot at the end of your paper, with an appeal, in my own humble opinion, being just a reopening of either a new question, but not that's different that it's a whole new lawsuit, or you being against the final conclusion of something. So if the SEC is like, you know what, judge, you actually did something wrong, theoretically speaking, you're opening the book back up. Right now it's closed. Everything's done and over with. This is the result. No more papers are going to come out. But you've got a couple of months to be like, you know what, judge, I don't think you did a good job. You're wrong on all these things. And it's not, for the most part, a fully new complaint, because that would have been a full new lawsuit. In my opinion, it's just like them saying, hey, we're not actually happy with the result. We want a redo. But again, within a redo of some parts at least comes the idea of it being over and you doing it or trying it over again, right? Or going through something to revise, even though it was done and over with and locked off. I think for the most part, though, it's just a difference of opinion. Some people think if you've done a test in school and you're getting it graded, that's officially your grade. If you now look into your test, you notice, hey, the judge did something wrong or your teacher did something wrong, and you get a higher point, that essentially it's not over until you've looked into your test, noticed if all the details were correct, then appealed or, perhaps let the teacher change it, and then that final result is when the test is over. Some people say, you know what, the moment the judge has nothing more to say, it's over and done with. It's just a difference of opinion. I personally find it, though, in the second half, the moment the judge says, hey, this is the final result of everything, it's over and done with, because perhaps nobody's ever going to talk about it again, because we're not sure if they're going to open it up. But I said this video has two parts. The second part is, what if they were to open it up? What if the SEC were to appeal? Well, take a look.
Look, if the SEC were a rational actor, they should just move on from this case. Again, the court's finding that there are no victims here, that no one suffered any loss in this case. There are no allegations of fraud. Nothing in this case advances the core mission of the SEC. But we all know that when it comes to crypto, the SEC has proven itself not to be rational. In fact, the court in our case, criticized the SEC for engaging in litigation gamesmanship and tactics rather than faithfully applying the law. So I wouldn't be surprised if the SEC does appeal, but I'll say a couple of things. Number one, and I think this is important for folks to appreciate and understand, XRP's status as not a security and the secondary market trading of XRP as not security transactions, that is the law of the land, and that does not change even if the SEC appeals. And I would ask everyone to focus on that. I would also ask people to focus on if they appeal, and again, I hope they don't, and if they're a rational actor, they shouldn't, but they're not rational. Statistically, the Court of Appeals, specifically the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, where this case will go, reverses lower courts less than 10% of the time. And given Judge Torres's careful and thoughtful treatment of all of the issues in this case, we're very confident that any appeal would withstand a challenge by the SEC. So again, if I were advising the SEC, not as Ripple's chief legal officer, but as a lawyer who's been doing this for a long time, I would recommend that they do not appeal. This case was an overreach from the outset. They've got a terrible record. I would say, look, SEC, go back to your core mission of protecting investors in the market and stop focusing on cases where there were no harm to investors and there was no harm to the market other than the harm that you visited by actually filing the suit. And if I were the SEC, on a good day, I would avoid the Supreme Court. With this Supreme Court, I don't think that they stand a reasonable chance of prevailing on any of their theories, whether or not a token in and of itself can be a security. No, it cannot be. A token doesn't embody, an ecosystem. All of those theories that they've been trying to expand the securities law that were soundly rejected in our case, they're going to continue to be rejected by courts of appeals, and ultimately they're going to be rejected by the Supreme Court.
So basically, if the SEC is a bit of a crazy one, which they sometimes are, we might see them try to open it back up. But what are the chances of it working out? Well, 10%, if not less. And I don't really know what they've got to gain with that or what the game plan would be. But hey, it's the SEC. Their game plans don't have to be logical to us. But then again, let's be real, boys. Let's be completely open and real. It doesn't all matter that much. I sometimes don't like to say this, but really, okay, maybe not you guys, but the comment section is so filled with all this pessimism and all these people complaining about this, that. Oh, I've waited so many years for XRP. Oh, the 7 year, shut up. Shut your ass up. People are so bad at investing. If you've not been able to turn XRP into a profit, you're either not convinced enough or you're not good at this yet. All right? Because XRP went from 10 cents to $2 in 1 year back in 2020 to 2021. And now you might say, Dusty, but it's been years since XRP overtook its all-time high. Who cares about the all-time high? It doesn't matter what the highest price ever has been. It matters how much you're able to gain on something. Some people never look at the all-time high. They just look at the price today and the price at some point in the future, which is exactly what I advise as not financial advice, my personal advice from me to you as a friend, for just entertainment purposes, because it would be funny, not because it's financial advice, I'm not your financial advisor, is to not focus too much on previous results in the instance of, oh, but $3 is the... No, just think about it logically. XRP is in a pretty good spot from almost any angle. The probability of doing really well over a bull run is very high. It doesn't matter which price is going to get to. If you're really nitpicky about, oh, but it needs to do a 74x because otherwise, go for a meme coin. Go for a coin that's in the 2,000 spot where you're most likely to lose all your money, but perhaps you get 1,000x. It's all about risk to reward. When it comes to XRP, I think the risk is rather low and the reward is pretty crazy high. We don't know if that means an 8x or an 18x or a 27x because every run is different. All these small parts are different, but it doesn't necessarily need to go to any crazy price for me to be really happy. If I see XRP this run at $5, for example, you know how happy I'll be? I'll be extremely happy. Even if it took 5-7 years to get there. If you didn't get your average price lower than $2, for example, if that's your average price, oh, Dios mío. Whew. This is going to be a long journey for you, my friend. XRP has been trading below 40 cents for such a long time. Just for fun, for example. Here, 2022 March, all the way towards 2023, like May, for example, you're always able to get XRP below 40 cents. Let's say a year or two has passed now. That'll be 50% gains right now, for example, in 2 years. Not amazing, but is that bad? Oh, but Dusty, I actually bought at $1. If only you bought at this exact peak here for this like 2-week period or whatever at the $2 mark and never bought again, that's madness. Or if you only bought at the all-time high here of $3 or whatever and never bought again, that's also a little bit of madness. Again, look at the chart. Crazy all-time high. Pretty hefty downfall. Crazy all-time high. Here was diminished by the lawsuit, in my own humble opinion. But this time around, it probably won't be. And even if there's a small lawsuit again going on because of the SEC stuff, XRP right now is not a security anymore, and it's trading on all the exchanges, even though back there it was taken off of almost any place. So again, I think it's basically, again, if we go from this 10-cent mark to $2 in like the span of a year, here we went from like dust to $4 in the span of like a year or two. If we again go from the, for example, 30 mark 2 years ago, or let's just say the 30-cent or 40-cent mark or 45-cent, whatever, to, you know, $5 or whatnot, a 10x in this little span of a year from now, I'd be very satisfied. If you're not, because you feel like you've wasted time on something, and you're not happy with the $5 XRP, I wonder what makes you happy. I really do wonder. But also perhaps you're just not stashed up enough. You might just need to go for smaller and smaller altcoins. You have to remember, guys, XRP is the number 7 here. If you take away the stables, it's number 5 biggest altcoin out there. It's not going to gain you as much as a meme that just got launched and it does really well. If you scroll down and you keep scrolling down for a little while, those market caps are so significantly lower that there's slightly more potential in just a crazy moonshot. But again, it's all about probability versus the eventual gains. If your chance of doing really, really well is like 0.001%, yes, there might be a 10,000x in front of it or against it, but the probability of doing well is very, very low. With XRP, I personally see my chances at like 95%, 99.99 in my own humble opinion, but I'm, you know, keeping it a bit low at 95. In reality, I see it as like a certainty. But I see that for multiple different coins as well, though. It's just with XRP, I think the moment it does cross the dollar mark, there'll be like a redemption rally of sorts where people are going to go a bit crazy. Community is going to get back together really, really hard. And there's a lot of FOMO going on. Whereas with a couple of other coins like Solana or whatnot, they've all seen crazy gains throughout the last little period here. I think there'll be less FOMO once it gets to these higher prices. But hey, maybe that's just me. That's about it. Make sure you press the like button if you didn't yet. I'll see you guys again in another one.